Wait, protests in Paris, over a Burkinabe president? Yeah, you heard right. Protesters in France are now demanding Ibrahim Traore's resignation, some even calling for his arrest. Why? Because Traore refused to bow, kicked France out, and took control of Burkina Faso's resources. And now he's inspiring a wave of Pan-African resistance that terrifies old powers. But ask yourself this: why is a president from West Africa causing panic in Europe? What are they afraid of? Maybe a united, sovereign Africa that no longer plays puppet. Traore isn't just leading a country, he's leading a revolution, and the empire is trembling. Should Africa protect him harder? Or has the West declared silent war again? Let us know in the comments. Is this fear or desperation?
Just imagine an African going to a former colonial power. The people who are taking your minerals, the people who are controlling all your resources, ensuring that you are always poor, the people who have been destabilizing your country, and then you are traveling all the way from your country to go to a colonial power to protest about your leader. He said, Africans must now open their eyes and see, because we cannot continue living in blindness. How can you engage your former colonial power? And there is a person who is liberating your country, and now you're protesting against that person. Now, the people of Burkina Faso went to the street and said, Ibrahim Traore is going nowhere. And what Ibrahim Traore has done without France is more than what France has done from the time it colonized Burkina Faso.
Wait.
So you guys heard that right? Ibrahim Traore, he had some people in France, Paris, protesting against him. They came together, and to me, it's more like a paid protest, because it doesn't make any sense in any way for people to be aggrieved, for African people especially, to be opposed to what Ibrahim Traore and the military guys are up to in Burkina Faso. It doesn't add up in any way. I mean, the only thing this guy is trying to do is to remove Burkina Faso from the clutches of the West, of France. And if you don't know, it's not a secret that most African countries are under some sort of control, especially when it comes to the natural resources. The natural resources are controlled by corporations, companies from other parts of the world, especially the western part of the world. And it has always been that way. Africa also happens to be one of the, if not the wealthiest continent in the world in terms of natural resources. So for the corporations to come from different parts of the world to gain access to those resources, it's beneficial to their host countries. So their governments intervene from time to time to ensure that these corporations have uninterrupted access to these resources. As a matter of fact, do you know that the way some countries were created was as a result of European exploration of resources in those geographical areas? Nigeria, typical example. Nigeria was created when a British guy that goes by the name Isaac Goldie sold off his rubber, palm oil. He had all types of businesses in Nigeria. He sold off those businesses to the British government when he was facing so much pressure from the Germans approaching from the east, the French approaching from the north and the west, right? He had to call the government of his country, the United Kingdom, back then in the late 1800s, around 1865, 1870, to come back him up. So the government paid him £800,000 for the business, and they took over the business. That business turned out to be Unilever, one of the most popular corporations in the world out of England. Unilever metamorphosized into Nigeria eventually. Unilever was the foundation of what we know as Nigeria. So a lot of these African countries began as corporations for the West. And you're not going to pretend like, even though right now we are no longer in times of colonization, we are still not facing the effect of that relationship, that dynamics from the past. And the only thing this guy, this young man, Ibrahim Traore, God bless him, the only thing he has done is to listen, guys, we are sick and tired of having puppets as our leaders. We're going to take over, arrest these leaders, and try to break the chains of colonialism. That's all the guy has done. We are sick and tired of having all these corporations come into our country, exploit our natural resources for their own benefit while our people remain perpetually poor. We're tired of it. The previous politicians that democracy gave to us only made sure that we remained poor, they remained rich, and the corporations kept on having access. That's all it has been. And Ibrahim Traore, young guy, Pan-Africanist, sick and tired of the status quo, just like the African Wahala. But obviously, the guy has more balls than the African Wahala. He says, listen, I'm going to take over this country. If anybody is beside me, let's do it together. Let's kick these guys out and let's determine our future. Let's have a proper self-determination. And everybody wants to kill him. There was another attack on Ibrahim Traore's life recently. This guy, there's been about 18 assassination attempts on Ibrahim Traore since he got into the position of presidency in Burkina Faso. There was another one recent, just a couple of days ago. We don't have the full details. There are many speculations, but one guy came into the picture. I'm going to show you that video shortly. A Black American general representing AFRICOM. And I'm going to get into that picture, into that video, but let's quickly react to this one.
Watch this. Now, for those of you who don't understand what they are saying, some Burkinabés are protesting in France, demanding that Ibrahim Traore should step down immediately.
Listen, these guys are in France. They are citizens of Burkina Faso, and they are protesting against what Ibrahim Traore is doing in the country. I bet you that these guys escaped from Burkina Faso during the time of the previous administration. They did not just escape to France, and they most likely went through the desert. You see, the African Wahala also is into humanitarian affairs where, hundreds of thousands of our people because of desperation, economic turmoil, they cross from sub-Saharan Africa and try to get into North Africa, Libya, and then maybe Europe because they are extremely desperate. A lot of people from Burkina Faso, many other sub-Saharan African countries find themselves in those situations. So more than likely, that French guy that is on the podium protesting against Ibrahim Traore, he probably went through the desert to get to France. Maybe not, though. I'm just trying to roast him at this point. But if you think about it, if more than likely he left Burkina Faso during the time of the previous administration that was kicked out, and that was supposed to be a democratic administration, why is he and the other guys in France protesting against Ibrahim Traore because he is undemocratic? Let's keep it honest with ourselves. What has been the benefit of democracy in sub-Saharan Africa since we've been deceiving ourselves about wanting to practice democracy? It has only led to more poverty, more corrupt politicians that are stooges to these Western companies, and more hopelessness. Largest amount of people crossing the Sahara Desert, going into Libya, a war-torn country, because they're trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea to Europe because of economic hopelessness. So these guys are ridiculous, obviously. These people trying to protest against Mr. Ibrahim Traore. And honestly, for me personally, and I hope a lot of people feel the same way, Ibrahim Traore is like a glimmer of hope. What those guys are doing in the AES, the Sahel countries, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, it brings some sort of hope. It makes us, for someone like me that originates from the place they call Nigeria, I consider Nigeria to be hopeless. But seeing the hope of guys like Ibrahim Traore and the other guys from Mali and Niger, it gives me some hope. So when different forces are against Ibrahim Traore, it's only natural for us to feel the way we feel. And we have to protect this guy through any means. Some guys like us are far away. We don't have the capacity to physically protect him. But the least we can do is use our voices. So we had this organization called the AFRICOM. The AFRICOM is the American, African, European Military Cooperation Organization. I'm just paraphrasing what the AFRICOM means. It's an organization from the United States of America in collaboration with Europe and Africa to set up military bases in these regions outside of the US. AFRICOM has this general that made a claim about Ibrahim Traore. Listen to what he has to say.
I can imagine a situation, though, in which the ruling elite of a country is receiving gratuities on the side that inure to the benefit of the strongman leader and not to the populace of the country. Does that sort of corruption and bribery go on with regard to the Belt and Road?
Absolutely, Chairman. I see this, and I don't mind calling them out, but Captain Traore and Burkina Faso, as they know that both, whether it's their gold reserves, that is all those proceeds are just in exchange to protect the junta regime.
So this guy goes by the name General Michael Langley of the United States military. He's a general, works for AFRICOM. He was having that conversation with the politician. And as expected, the politicians in America would always pretend like they want to save Africa. Okay. Listen, man, I'm like almost 40 years old. And since I was a kid, these guys have been trying to save us. And the only thing that happened was we got poorer, we got more hopeless. But now we have a glimmer of hope in people like Ibrahim Traore and Burkina Faso. And by the way, Burkina Faso has accomplished a lot. They have nationalized their mining, a lot of their mining, gold, uranium. They've nationalized the agricultural processing. Some of these things might not sound really crucial, but in terms of building a nation, you need to have self-determination. Also, if you consider the fact that your previous activities by not nationalizing those processes have only led to your poverty, then it only makes sense for you to try to nationalize and not have random people from all over the world deep into your resources before they can export that gold to China, to France, to wherever. It has to be processed in their country, which is going to create jobs in the process. And also, it's going to create more financial value for the product. Because if you're selling raw gold, let's say 10 kilograms of raw gold is $3,000. That same 10 kilograms of processed gold that has been turned into chains, into some nice artifacts, it'll be sold for 5 times the value. So what the African countries have been doing for so long is to sell the raw materials, just like Nigeria, sell the crude oil, to foreign countries and then import refined products. So the benefit doesn't come to the country or the people. The benefit goes to the corporations that originate from Europe because they bring in their machines, their equipment to get those raw materials out of the ground and then take it to their countries for processing. That entire process removes the wealth from the African people. And that's all Ibrahim Traore is trying to reverse. Tell me if anything is bad about that. Obviously, there is nothing bad about it, but these guys have their mission. Their mission is to continue having unhindered access to those raw materials. And if there is any leader that stands in the way of that possibility, he will be taken out. Same thing happened in the same Burkina Faso in the late 80s with Thomas Sankara, when Sankara was trying to nationalize and become self-sufficient as a country. They took him out. They used one of his close allies, one of the guys that worked with him directly in the military, was used to, organize the assassination. Now, look at this guy, Michael E. Langley. He is, like I said, combatant, commander, United States Africa Command. General Langley of Marine Corps became the 6th commandant of the U.S. Africa Command in August 2022. Can anybody tell me the benefit of any US Africa situation? Bro, in my entire life, all the leaders that have been in my so-called country, they've always been ass kissers of the United States of America. The United States of America has always intervened in elections. They literally removed a corrupt Jonathan. Well, they were part of the process of removing a corrupt Jonathan for a much more corrupt Buhari in 2015. The same United States of America, after Buhari completely decimated Nigeria, destroyed. Listen, this is what Buhari did, bro. Buhari destroyed the most crucial aspect of a country, which is the social cohesion. If people don't feel like they can trust their fellow countrymen to a very large degree, then the country is broken. People become enemies. They start suspecting one another. That's exactly what Buhari did. Apart from destroying the economy and the security infrastructure, he destroyed the social cohesion, all thanks to the United States government. Right? So the same United States government is coming out to tell us that, hey, this guy, Ibrahim Traore, he is doing deals with China. They are building roads, and all the money they make from that process, it's just some ridiculous garbage. The money they make from that process is used to protect Ibrahim Traore from stepping down from the government. That's what this clown, General Langley, said to the politician. How does that make any sense? So these are the types of people that they use to, obviously the guy, he's of African descent. Maybe he claims it's not, because it's one of the new, should I call it a new culture, especially in the United States of America, where people that look African as hell will tell you that they are not African. No, I'm not African. I'm a Native American. No, I have my ancestors were not from Africa. They are from Colorado. That's what some African people will tell you. And I understand the psychology behind. The real fact is that people will naturally gravitate and associate with something they are proud of. And it's unfortunate. A lot of our people around the world, they are not even proud to associate with Africa because we are not doing as good as we're supposed to. And it has been this way for centuries. So a lot of people are just ashamed to be African, which is a shame in itself, right? That comes from low self-esteem. If you have low self-esteem, then you might start saying ridiculous stuff like, yeah, although I might have the same skin color as you, but we're not from the same place. Yes, we know you're not from Africa. You were born somewhere else, but come on, man, stop making yourself look ridiculous. So I suspect this guy, General Langley, might be one of such people, because I don't understand why a man of this age, the guy is like 64 years old. How does a 64-year-old man allow himself to be used to make such utterances? Listen, the United States of America, if I'm not mistaken, aren't they currently going through some massive economic turmoil in terms of the stock market crashing, the bonds, the United States bonds going through hell, a lot of ridiculousness going on in the United States. So aren't they supposed to be bothered about Donald Trump completely destroying their economy before they think about what's going on in Africa? Do they still have enough money to send soldiers to Africa before sending this clown that allowed himself to be used? Such a shame. They had to use someone of African descent too, because it's more believable. If they had used someone else that looked different, maybe fewer people would have believed. But if a guy of African descent comes out and makes this ridiculous claim, then maybe it sounds more believable.
I can imagine a situation, though, in which the ruling elite of a country is receiving gratuities on the side that in order to the benefit of the strongman leader, and not to the populace of the country. Does that sort of corruption and bribery go on with regard to the Belt and Road?
Absolutely, Chairman. I see this, and I don't mind calling them out, but Captain Traore and Burkina Faso, as they know that both, whether it's their gold reserves, that is all those proceeds are just in exchange to protect the junta regime.
What a shame. The guy was even stammering to show you how he lacked confidence in what he was saying. Such a shame, but it's good to have people expose themselves, to have you know who they are and their true characters. I bet you we've never heard of AFRICOM talking about this guy, Tinubu. This is Tinubu, the president of Nigeria. We never, ever, ever. AFRICOM has never accused any African leader that performs the same way as a guy like Tinubu of benefiting from the corruption or trying to stay in power. We've never heard about that before. And I know you might want to argue that, oh no, they're coming straight from a military junta versus democratic process point of view. They are still wrong. How is it their business what type of government a country practices? The United States is a huge country. They have a ton of resources. They have a lot of money. Why are they bothered about what is going on in an African country? It's because they are hypocrites. They are liars. You have this guy, Tinubu. They love him. They love Tinubu so much. Tinubu ordered offensive as plateau attack leaves 51 dead. This was from April 15th. About a week ago, 51 people were killed. So Tinubu just came back from France after being there for about 2-3 weeks. And then you might be wondering, why is an African president in Europe for 2-3 weeks? Well, it's normal because our direct neighbor, Cameroon, their president, Paul Biya, has been in power since 1982 or thereabouts, about 43 years. He easily spends 5-6 months at a time in France. Easily. It's not a big deal. People just, oh yeah, our president is in France. He works remotely in France in a 5-star hotel, while Cameroonians are living in extreme poverty as usual. Same thing in Nigeria. You have a guy like Tinubu. You just, oh, I'm going to France for a 2-week working visit. During those 2 weeks, hundreds of people have been slaughtered by different terror groups It is the responsibility of the federal government. It's not the responsibility of the state government, especially the way Nigeria is structured in an illegal way. You structure a country that has hundreds of millions of people, multiple nationalities. You put all of them under one leadership. You force them. You didn't even put them. You forced them under one leadership. So they ended up poor and confused and hopeless for the next 100 years. Now, fast forward 2025, that country has its president going on a working holiday visit in France for 3 weeks, while hundreds of people are getting slaughtered by different terror groups in the country. Guess what? Tinubu went to France for medical reasons because the hospitals in Nigeria are trash. And that was the same thing Buhari did for 8 years. So if a guy like Ibrahim Traore comes into the picture, he's getting attacked by the same Western countries for trying to nationalize his country. You've never heard of Ibrahim Traore supporting his fellow government officials traveling to Europe for medical attention. That would never happen under Traore. But under Tinubu, under the so-called democratic government, it's normalized. Oh, what can we do? We just complain. Oh, Buhari has gone to France again, London for 2 weeks. Oh, Tinubu has gone to France. So Tinubu, while people are getting slaughtered, is giving orders to the military, or go and attack the people that from France. It's a joke. It's a shame. They would never complain when it's people like that. And then you have them announcing on Twitter, President Bola Tinubu will return home today. He doesn't need to return. He can stay there forever. Look at this comment. How long will he be visiting Nigeria for? Because it's a joke. It's a joke. Anyways, yeah, Nigeria is a joke. Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, under attack. Not 100% sure what is going on. But the good thing is that Ibrahim Traore, ever since the military guys took over in Burkina Faso, that revolutionary spirit is slowly spreading to other regions in Africa. Their direct neighbor, Ghana. Ghana has also made a move to nationalize its gold reserves. Yeah, that happened. You know, Ghana recently had an election with a new president. And the president, the parliament, the president, they've all come to the agreement that it's time for us to nationalize the gold production, especially considering how valuable gold is. The current price of gold is the highest it has ever been. And it's time for us to stop giving out this precious resource for free. So this was a parliamentary debate from the end of March about this conversation.
I beg to move that the Gold Board Bill 2025 be now read the third time. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
All members, motion move. Any seconder? Yes, Speaker, I second the motion. All members, motion move and seconded, and it is for the consideration of the House. Honourable members, as many as are in favor of the motion, say aye. Those against, say no. The ayes have it. The motion is accordingly adopted.
An act to establish the Ghana Gold Board to oversee, monitor, and undertake the buying, selling, and export of gold and other precious minerals, promote value addition to the gold and other precious minerals of the country, support responsible mining and accumulation of gold reserves by the Bank of Ghana, generate foreign exchange, and provide for related matters.
Honourable members, The Ghana Gold Board Bill 2025 is now read a third time and passed.
So congratulations to Ghana. Hopefully they can implement this gold board bill. They can optimize the gold board bill so that, number one, the illegal mining that has been going on for possibly over a century now, the illegal gold mining that has been going on for over a century, passed on by different nationalities. Europeans came, as a matter of fact, Ghana used to be called the Gold Coast by the Europeans. Oh, yeah. They called Ghana the Gold Coast. They called Burkina Faso the Upper Volta. And they called the Oyo Empire, Benin, Lagos, they called that the Slave Coast. So the Gold Coast was explored by, has been exploited by multiple groups. These days in 2025, the Chinese are also on board. And while this exploitation is going on, there is so much environmental pollution. The rivers are full, shaking from the bottom. So we have lots of silt floating in the water, making it unuseful. So much degradation going on, so much illegality, and so much leakages of wealth that was supposed to improve the lives of the people and the environment in the country. So with the parliament passing this gold stuff, apologies, I can't remember what it's called, gold board, they called it the Ghana Gold Board Bill. With the passing of the Gold Board Bill, hopefully, it'll yield some progress for Ghana. That's what we are hoping, because we are always going to root for any African country that tries to do something that is beneficial for the people.
Was announced by a new government body on Monday. Now, the newly created body is called the Gold Board, and it will now be regulating all of the gold trade, from buying, selling to exporting gold. Now, this agency will be the only gateway of Africa's leading gold producer. For years, Ghana has struggled with illegal gold mining, and it's part of the government's effort to streamline the practice through the formation of this gold board. The government is trying to seal the loopholes. Now, it wants to tighten control over this shiny metal on which the livelihoods of at least 1 million people are dependent. The ban on gold trading takes effect on the 1st of May. However, they can apply to the body for permissions. Now, Ghana's gold exports rose significantly in 2024. It grew over 50% and reached more than $11 billion last year. $5 billion came from legal small-scale miners. A portion of the remaining likely comes from illegal mining, making its way to the supply chain without proper licenses. It's believed that Ghana can earn more if gold went through the official channels. Illegal mining is also known as galamsey in the country, and many Chinese nationals have been heavily a part of this malpractice. Many unemployed youth have also joined the illegal mining. They see it as one of the few ways to earn money fast.
The main reason the government has failed to stop illegal mining is joblessness and unemployment in the country. For example, I am getting older, and if I am jobless, and they tell me about a dirty job that will make more money than I expected, because I am unemployed, I'll take it. If someone advised me to stop the job because it's destroying bodies of water, and I stop, if I don't have another job that will make me money, I will definitely return to the illegal mining.
So it's a dangerous mix of foreign financiers and machinery, local youth desperate for income, and a weak system. Together, these fuel an underground gold economy.
Yeah, so that's the summary of what's going on in Ghana as far as nationalizing their gold production. Hopefully, they can optimize the process. Hopefully, that's all I can say for now. And then in Namibia, the president is also catching some of that should I call it the revolutionary spirit, Madam Nindwa. Oh, I apologize, my people. I might be butchering her name right now. She is the president of Namibia, and she also cut off some United States mining companies from the oil and gas production in Namibia. So she ended, and she was recently sworn in as the president as well. I believe early 2025. She ended the contract, the oil and gas contract with some major US companies and told them to immediately stop operations. You should also be aware that these companies make about $1 billion on an annual basis just from Namibia. And you can imagine how they are spread across many other countries like that, right? I can imagine how much they made in a country like Nigeria, for example, from the oil and gas industry. I remember growing up and we had Chevron. We had Chevron gas stations everywhere. Those guys probably made $200 billion before they left, because they eventually left. They left after they had sucked it dry as much as possible. They benefited from it as well as the corrupt leadership in the so-called country, and the people remained poor. So with Madam Nindwa, the president of Namibia, making this move, highly commendable. Eventually, local mining companies, they don't even have to be Namibian local companies. They could, if Namibia doesn't even have the full technology, they could invite Botswana, right next door neighbor. They have some good technology. They can invite South Africa. They can invite some other African countries that have the technology, slowly rebuild the oil and gas industry from a Namibian centric perspective, as opposed to having vultures from all over the world hovering, taking the resources, while the people never, ever, ever benefit from the wealth. So shout out to the president of Namibia. We're going to go back to Burkina Faso real quick again. Man, Ibrahim Traore, we have to give that guy a lot of credit, and he has to be protected. So in Burkina Faso, a Canadian company, this time around, it's not gold, Fortuna Mining. Fortuna Mining is a Canadian company that has been operating in Burkina Faso for so long. Check out this video for yourself. We're going to react to it.
Fortuna Mining evidently wants out of the Burkina Faso business. On Friday, the company announced that they have entered into an agreement to not only sell their operating mine within the country, but their exploration assets too. Commenting on the matter, CEO Jorge Ganoza cited the increasingly challenging business climate within the country as a main reason behind their departure, which isn't exactly a positive sign for other operators in the nation. All right, everybody, let's dive in. Fortuna Mining has entered into a definitive agreement to sell off their mining interests in Burkina Faso. The sale is said to consist of their interest in Roxgold San USA, which holds their 90% interest in the Yeramoko mine, as well as 3 other wholly owned subsidiaries that hold exploration permits within the country. The transaction will see the assets sold to Soleil Resources, which is a private operator that owns 3 mines within Burkina Faso, alongside exploration permits and their own drilling company. In other words, the assets have been sold to a local company that is fine with taking on the risk of operating within their homeland.
As a matter of fact, let me give them a round of applause. Very good news. So these Canadian companies, because of difficult, challenging business environments, they sold off their mining company along with the equipment to local Burkina Faso companies. That's a good thing. The wealth can finally stay in the country and alleviate the poverty. We're not going to pretend like we don't know that the entirety of West Africa is like 80% poverty stricken. We're not going to pretend. That's where I'm from. We are poverty stricken. And we've been this way for so long. So isn't it time for us to change how we've been doing stuff? Man, big kudos to Ibrahim Traore for for putting so much pressure for this revolution. Without this revolution, the status quo would have continued. A puppet would have remained as the president of Burkina Faso. The Canadian companies, the French companies, the American companies, they would keep on having direct access to those mines, those gold mines, and all these other expensive minerals. And the people will remain poverty stricken. So if we're going to move things around, let's assume that this revolution does not even yield all the results that we expect. But the least that it can do is to minimize the amount of money that is being fretted away from these countries, because these countries are beginning to nationalize their minerals. Highly commendable stuff.
Risk that Fortuna is evidently no longer comfortable with. In announcing the sale, Fortuna basically said that the rising business risk, on top of the fact that mineral reserves at Yeromoko only support one more year production, and that in-country exploration was previously halted, basically making the sale a no-brainer. And it helps them avoid an estimated $20 million in future mine closure liabilities, which seems to basically be the cream on top. Let's take a quick look at what exactly Fortuna is offloading here. The primary asset being sold is the Yeromoko underground mine, which entered production back in 2015 when it was under the ownership of Roxgold. The mine, alongside the Bo Usora gold project in Burkina Faso and the then development stage Segula gold project in Côte d'Ivoire, were acquired by Fortuna in 2021 with the $1.1 billion acquisition of Roxgold. Arguably, that transaction turned out favorably for Fortuna, with Segula now Fortuna's premier asset, expected to produce between 134 and 147,000 ounces this year and 160 to 180,000 ounces next year. Yeromoko, meanwhile, served as a great asset for Fortuna.
Meanwhile, all that wealth, producing 150 something kilotons of gold, wherever that was, that wealth never touched the people of Burkina Faso. They've been digging that gold for like 100 straight years. Different companies, they just pass the baton from one to the other. Oh, it's your turn. Oh, you guys take the baton, go drill the gold for the next 20 years. You're not going to have any problems. If anybody tries to make noise, your government of your country will militarily intervene and make sure that you keep on having access to those drains, to those mines. Meanwhile, the people, the locals of those communities that their rivers have been polluted as a result of your mining activities, they are still going to be poverty stricken because that's their destiny. They expect. We're not even pawns. We are worse than pawns. We are like the dirt. You understand? Zero value. So yeah, very, very happy that they are selling off all their assets. It doesn't even matter. Like, it's actually better for there not to be any mining going on and the people remain poor than for there to be mining going on and they still remain poor. So there is no loss in this. If you understand what I'm saying, there is nothing to lose. If you sell the mine, or rather, if you force the mining guys to sell off their mining equipment and their business and go back to their countries, you could still remain poverty stricken, but at least the environmental degradation will be eliminated. But if you have them remain in your country, exploiting, doing the mining, you're still going to be poor, guaranteed, 100% guaranteed. After all, we have 100-year historical data to back that guarantee. If you continue mining, if these African countries allow these foreign corporations to continue mining, the people are still going to be poor, 100%. So they might as well stop the mining. And if the people still remain poor, it's still a win. And if they don't remain poor, then it's a double win.
Well, the reserves were there. The mine last year produced 116,000 ounces of gold at an all-in sustaining cost of $13.59 an ounce. And this year, despite reserves slipping to 150,000 ounces or so, guidance called for production of 107 to 121,000 ounces, making it the second largest operation under Fortuna's belt. And the mine has a strong operating history. 2023 saw the production of 118,000 ounces at an AISC of $14.99 an ounce, while 2022 production, the first full year under Fortuna's ownership, stood at 106,000 ounces at cash cost of $15.29 an ounce.
Chill. I'm going to do that quick math. This is revenue that should have gone into Burkina Faso or Burkina Faso companies. You think about it, these foreign companies, they bring their equipment, their employees from their countries to exploit the natural resources, right? The money remains within their climate. It's in their ecosystem. It doesn't flow into the hands, into the pockets of the local Burkina Faso people. So, sorry, I'm just going to do that quick math here. And I'm wrapping up this live stream in a few minutes. If you enjoy this type of video, please subscribe to the channel, share the video. We speak about African issues, why we remain where we are, and we commend people or governments when they do the right thing to make sure that we get out of where we are in terms of poverty. So the value of 106,108 tons of gold or ounces of gold at $1,529 per ounce is $162 million from 2022. That company in that small mine generated $162 million. That money would have gone a long way in preventing Burkina Faso citizens from having the need to travel across the Sahara Desert just to get to Europe and be dying in the desert. It would have created lots of schools to have the Burkina Faso citizens educated, good hospitals. $162 million would go a long way. Hospitals for the people to get treated, to get access to proper medical facilities, pay doctors properly. That would have been a good chunk of money to be added to the budget, don't you think? And it kept on increasing every year.
Outside of the mine, the sale is said to consist of a number of exploration assets that Fortuna had in country. But quite frankly, little detail is available on these assets. Prior to being acquired by Fortuna, Roxgold frequently spoke of high-grade assays from exploration being conducted at the Borosora Gold Project, found in the south of Burkina Faso. But Fortuna has said little about these exploration stage projects since the closing of that transaction years ago, with seemingly little follow-up work occurring. I guess they weren't as keen on operating in Burkina Faso as they made it seem when announcing the acquisition. So what do the terms of the sale look like? Well, total consideration is expected to amount to about $130 million US.
Actually, we don't care. Oh, that's a huge loss. If you remember at the beginning of the video, they acquired the business from another mining business for $1.1 billion. But right now, they're about to sell the business for $130 million. So that's like 90% decline in the value. Well, that's not too bad for a company that has benefited for like a decade, pillaging the raw materials of a foreign country while the people remain poverty-stricken. But yeah, that's the content. That's the show for today. Thank you for joining me on the African Wahala. Before we leave, let me give you guys some accomplishments of the government of Ibrahim Traore. Number one, a fight towards self-sufficiency. Like, legitimately, it seems like Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger might be the only truly emancipated countries in Africa today. I'm just saying. Now, I'm not saying that necessarily translates to a decent standard of living for the people. Because, I mean, if you travel to countries like Botswana, even Namibia that I was just talking about, those guys have it much better than we do in West Africa. Their environment is serene. The poverty out there is not as bad as we have it. In Southern Africa, they have it a little bit better. right? But they are still colonized to a large extent. But in terms of proper independence, true independence, which hasn't been completely achieved, because these guys have vultures, they have hyenas lurking around, looking for them to sleep. We recently heard of Ibrahim Traore's, one of his bodyguards. I mean, it's a rumor, but one of his bodyguards was offered $2 million or maybe $20 million or something to assassinate Ibrahim Traore. And then, as a matter of fact, let me play this video for you quickly.
I heard this rumor a few days ago.
It's rumors. It's rumors. But this guy has had about 20 attempts on his life.
I didn't want to make a video, but I didn't want to talk about it. But now with everything going on, I'm starting to think, you know what? Yeah, it makes sense. I should have said something. But basically, there's a rumor about Ibrahim Traore's bodyguard. I don't know if you've heard about it. Basically, if you look in old pictures of Ibrahim Traore, you'll see this one guy, one main guy behind him. So apparently he was approached and offered money for the death of Ibrahim Traore. The rumor is that he was told he was going to be given $11 million up front and 22 after the deed was done to kill Ibrahim Traore. Apparently he accepted the deal and told them, you know, there was a day meeting place where he was going to go get the money. You know, what he did on the other hand, he took the money he didn't take the money. He agreed he was going to take the money. And then he went to go tell Ibrahim Traore what happened, that he was offered $11 million to kill him. So on the day of the exchange where he was going to go take the money, they went, instead of just one person showing up, it was a whole military thing. They arrested, apparently it's a white guy. They arrested the white guy, and there've been pictures going around of black people arrested and this one white guy. People are claiming that's him, that he's the guy who offered it. I saw it. I didn't want to make a video of it because I didn't see anything to verify that information. But in light of General Langley, who is the house nigger for the U.S. military, getting on and basically saying China and Russia and Ibrahim Traore are threats to Africans, and they want to they want to help Africans by all means. I'm starting to think, yeah, this is true. This is true. It might be true. But yeah, the rumor is apparently Ibrahim Traore's bodyguard was offered $33 million, 11 up front, 22 after the deed was done. And instead of taking the money, he told Ibrahim Traore what happened, and they arrested the people and tortured them and got information. So now the theory is that the U.S. military the U.S. is not trying to get militarily involved because they realize there's no one available that could be bought. I heard this.
Yeah, that's the rumor. But yeah, and star. Don't be deceived by Ghana President Mahama. He has formed BA Gold Mining Company with his brother as CEO with Chinese. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. I would not be surprised because Ghana is, we are very similar to Ghana. I'm talking about Nigeria. And we are very similar in terms of the corruption in the leadership, the corruption amongst the politicians. So if this is truly the case, I wouldn't be surprised. And personally, I didn't even put too much hope in Ghana. I just felt like they are also being inspired by what is going on with their direct neighbor to the north, Burkina Faso. And that's why the parliament, we saw the parliament voting in support of the gold board. And then they passed it into law. But who knows? It might still be a scam at the end of the day. I wouldn't be surprised personally. I'll tell you the truth. Because like I said, if you've been scammed so many times by these politicians at this age, you're not going to be vulnerable and easily believe anything that they say. Even Ibrahim Traore, I'll tell you the truth personally, I love the brother, but I still have to have a little bit of reservation for anybody that is in charge of a society, because Oftentimes, like we had in the past, we've had it multiple times, people with good intentions, genuine good intentions, get into leadership positions and they realize that it's actually harder than they expected. And they are forced to conform into that lifestyle of corruption that their predecessors engaged in. So I'm not going to be entirely surprised if that situation with the nationalization of the gold in Ghana is partly a farce. I wouldn't be fully surprised. I really hope not. And that's why I kept on saying, I really hope Ghana and its government and its people can optimize this step towards nationalizing the gold production and minimizing environmental degradation in terms of, polluting the rivers and stuff like that. So yeah, that's it for the night. Thank you for joining the African Wahala. Click on the like button, subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content, share the video to other viewers. Let us have a conversation. I can even put the link in the comment section like I just did. You can click on it if you're interested. We can have a conversation for 5 minutes talking about African issues, not just African issues, but people of African descent all over the world are encompassed in this conversation. So yeah, that's the African Wahala. And thank you for joining me once again. Don't forget to click on the like button, subscribe to the channel. Peace.